The Sumter County Panthers blasted their opponent, Carver, Atlanta, last week. They'll advance to the semifinals and face Hapeville Charter. We'll talk about that next on the Integrity Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, sports administrators, and sports personalities. Thanks for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. Now here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello and welcome on in to the Integrity Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Estes. As always, proud to be joined by Scott Westbrook. Last week, the Sumter County Panthers faced off against Carver, Atlanta, the number one seed in the GHSA AA playoffs. Scott, you and I both picked them to upset Carver, Atlanta, and wow, did they get the job done.
See, Tim, I believe the only people who weren't surprised at that game or that or the score or the way it turned out or whatever are the people who've been following Sumter County all year. I mean, they had to travel, they had to go up there to the unfriendly confines of Lakewood Stadium or whatever it's called. But I think probably Carver, Atlanta took them a little too lightly, looked past them, had already punched their ticket for the Dome, and found out right quick they're going to be watching from the couch tomorrow night.
We're glad that you've joined us tonight. We are live at the Roman Oven Pizzeria in Americus. Stop by and say hello to us. Have a good supper. I want to thank Anthony Dragoin and his staff for feeding us tonight. Our show is brought to you each week by our friends at Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree removal, or stump removal needs, give our friends at Harper's Tree and Stump Removal a call. You can contact Keith at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is the proud premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast. We've mentioned that Hapeville Charter will be the opponent for Sumter County tomorrow night in the Class AA Semi-Finals. Scott, they come in with a record of 9-4, which is a little deceptive. Their losses were to Cartersville, 42-6. That was in the opening game of the season. Cartersville finished at 12-1. Many will remember we talked about Hapeville Charter on this show in Game 3 when they came to South Georgia to take on Lee County. They were tied 0-0 at the half, had to postpone the game and come back a few days later. Lee County ended up winning that game 28-13. They also lost to 6A Westlake by a score of 13-7. Westlake finished 4-7. And then their last loss was a 14-7 loss to this same Carver Atlanta team that Sumter just beat. So, Scott, even though they're 9-4, those losses have come against very good teams.
And, the Hapeville Charter coach, I don't know him personally, but he does what a lot of successful coaches do. Is when they get outside and can schedule games outside their region, they schedule tough opponents. They schedule the Lee counties. They schedule the Cartersville. They know it's more than likely going to be an L at the end of the season, but it shows him where he's weak in and exposes them and lets them know what they've got to work on. So, they're ready for the playoffs. And so Hapeville Charter is not – they're in the Final Four in the state. They've done what it takes to get here. They've played tough teams, even though it was a loss. But you figure they're pretty evenly matched with Carver Atlanta. 14-7 score is one of those that a play or two either way could have ended up a win in their column.
That's right. Hapeville Charter, if you'll recall, just a few years ago in the state championship, Hapeville had some bad luck. They had a call that about a week later. This was before instant replay in the Dome, and about a week after that game, they went back and reviewed that and said, the officials did not get that right, and very well should have been the state champions. They finished as the runner-up. So Hapeville Charter has got a long, storied history in Georgia high school football of success. Scott, I wanted to look real quick at some common opponents because the Panthers and the Hornets have 3 common opponents this year. The first one, of course, Carver, Atlanta. Hapeville lost to them 14-7. Sumter County beat Carver, Atlanta by a score of 39-20. Kip Collegiate, who was Sumter County's first round opponent in the playoffs. Hapeville Charter beat them 35-18. Sumter beat Kip Collegiate out of Atlanta 42-7. And then finally, Columbus High. That was another one of their non-region games. Hapeville beat them 48-0. Sumter County won 48-3. Of course, Columbus got the late field goal in the fourth quarter to make it 48-3. So as I look at common opponents, I still have to give Sumter County the edge.
Right, and you throw these games like Cartersville, throw that out the window, throw the Lee County game out the window. But you look at all this other stuff, these other scores, and it tells you one thing about Hapeville, and I know you're going to cover the offense later. They've got a pretty good defense. They hold some pretty good. They hold some pretty good teams to a low scoring game. So that's been one thing that with Sumter County we've been able to point out all year long is their defense is phenomenal. Well, it looks like they're going to play a team with a good defense tomorrow night.
I would agree with you. When you look at who should Sumter County be pointing to, who do they kind of key on, it always comes down to the quarterback. And the quarterback for Hapeville Charter is a guy named Keelan Pope. He is the region player of the year in their region. So you think about a team like Carver, Atlanta, who was either number 1 or number 2 all year long. You would think the player of the year comes from them. No, he comes from Hapeville Charter. Keelan Pope last week was 15 for 24 in the quarterfinal game. He threw for 233 yards.
Yeah, he's there's going to be a lot of balls in the air tomorrow night when Hapeville Charter's on offense. We're going to see how the weather and how that affects everything with the throwing game on there.
Yeah, got a good point there. They do throw it more than they run it, but they do run it. Their leading rusher is Damon Stiggers. He's the leading rusher for the Hapeville Charter Hornets. So you can't just focus on the pass. Although if you had to, Scott, going in, look at what do they do the most, I think they throw it a good bit more than they run it.
I think so too. I mean, you got a high school quarterbacks 15-24 for 233 yards in the third round of the playoffs. That shows you he's got confidence. That shows you he's got ability, and they're not afraid to put it up in the air. So our DBs better be ready tomorrow night.
Hapeville Charter averages 25 points per game on offense. They only give up an average of 14 points a game. So, Scott, I don't think they're as prolific on offense as Sumter County has been. But if you look at strength of schedule, Georgia High School Football Daily has Hapeville Charter as having the 11th toughest schedule in Class AA, where Sumter County was like number 31.
Right. And so we'll see if that plays into effect. We'll be able to tell probably by halftime tomorrow night if the game's pretty close. Sometimes being in some tough games helps you out in scenarios like that to where you can dig a little bit deeper and be able to finish and close the game out.
Coach Will Rogers from Sumter County has asked to pass along his appreciation for all of the community support as they pursue their goal of winning the state championship. Their theme all year has been Go Hunt, and he has asked us to push that along to you. If you're in the Sumter County area, come out and support the Panthers. Our show today is also brought to you by Carter's Fried Chicken. They're located at 206 Tripp Street in Marcus. Owner Mike Shaddles and his staff have been feeding Southwest Georgia for more than 30 years. They offer daily lunch specials featuring baked or fried chicken, and they're a supporter of all of our local area teams. They'd like to wish the Sumter County Panthers the best of luck in the game Friday night. So, Scott, we've talked about Hapeville Charter. For some of our friends that are tuning in today, they may want to know a little about Sumter, what they have done, how do they compare? So Sumter County will come into this game with a record of 12-1. Their only loss all year was to Carver of Columbus, and the final score in that game was 8-7. It was a rainy night. Both teams played incredibly well. Sumter had a punt that went through the punter's hands. It was kind of a high snap, went through his hands and into the end zone for a safety. And that was the difference in the ball game.
Well, and the touchdown too. I mean, but that a game like that, it was a slugfest. It was a heavyweight fight, and I think you said that after the game after that week. And it's regardless the scenario, the difference in the score. When you play two top tier teams, the ones usually with the fewer mistakes wins the ball game, whether it's the fewest turnovers or the scenario like you just spelled out. And so that's what you got to do. You got to play mistake-free football, and usually you'll come out on top in situations like that. The Carver Columbus game, the 8-7 score, just like I said a while ago, that's even more true when you're comparing it, looking at a 14-7 game. That game could have easily gone in Sumter County's favor. One thing that stands out to me about that game, it was played in a slop bucket because it was pouring down rain. I was actually going to try to go to that game, but I said, no, I can watch that from my recliner and stay dry. But I'm definitely going to go tomorrow night. And regardless of the weather, we're going tomorrow night's game.
Sumter County is loaded with talent. The name that everybody knows is A.J. Kearse. He's probably their most prolific player. Last week, A.J. rushed for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, is also an all-state linebacker on the other side of the ball. Ishmael Jones, the quarterback at Sumter County. Scott, I think this kid's come a long way. Kind of struggled last year as a junior, learned a little bit about what the position was about. There's a lot of times last year where he would hold on to the ball too long, maybe take a sack rather than throw it away. This year he seems to have gotten more comfortable, manages the game a lot better, and I think that's made a big difference for the Panthers.
Both the names you just mentioned, both of them have matured a tremendous amount. They've improved each year, and as college coaches, that's what they look for in these high school players. AJ was injured most of the year last year, and that's the truth. So he is unlike a lot of blue chip athletes. Sometimes they mail it in their senior year.
Yeah,
he has not. He has stepped his game up. That's indicative of the type of person he is, his character. And Ishmael Jones has also matured as a player and is a lot more poised in the pocket, a lot more confidence. And that, there's really, if I were an opposing coach, I don't know where I'd find the weakness in Sumter County right now.
Right. And, Scott, we talked about him being such a good running back, but you can't just focus on him because you look at the stats. And their next running back, who both of them play at the same time a lot of times, Quayshawn Tatum, he's got over 700 yards rushing.
I said, and he has sneakily done that too, So I think, and then also, I know you're going to cover the receiving corps. There's some of the receiving corps that have done tremendous, and the leading is a freshman. Is it? No, the leading.
He's not a leading receiver, but he has done well.
Receiver.
So listen to this, Scott. Their number one receiver, and I think this may be what you were alluding to. Their number one receiver is a 6'5" senior by the name of Omari Woodard. He didn't play last week. He had a high ankle sprain. I think he will be back. He won't be at 100%, but he will be back and on the field. But when you go and you beat the number one team in the state without your number one receiver, that's even more impressive.
Exactly. He's going to be ready tomorrow night. I know usually when you get a premier player that comes back right after an injury, they really step their game up because they've had to sit on the sidelines for 1 week, and it has just amped them up a little bit.
One of the guys that really has stepped up at the receiver, especially last week, was Jaquez Dice. He's really come on strong in the second half of the season. And then two guys, Scott, that are freshmen, and I think one of these is who you were talking about, Aiden Robinson. They call him Pocket. Really a good athlete, maybe the best pure athlete on the team. And so he's done really well. The last 4 or 5 games, just since they've gotten the playoffs, a kid by the name of Jaden Galloway. You need to remember that name, Jaden Galloway. has had a couple of rushing touch or receiving touchdowns. And even his catches that aren't touchdowns are big yardage gainers. So he's getting a good feel for that. So he's quickly making a name for himself. And Scott, I'm like you. You kind of stole what I was going to say. You got guys that can run the football. You got a quarterback that's managing the game really well. Then you got receivers that are catching the football. The offensive line has been strong all year. I don't see a weakness there.
I don't either. And the thing is Will Rogers, and I hope it doesn't look like we're just every week, just, we're the Will Rogers fan club. But the thing about it is,
But we are.
And we've been at, and they can go back and look at previous years when he first came. We knew these days were coming. And I think how fortunate it is for Coach Will Rogers to have these senior leaders, and these freshman stars, that they can sit there and you've got like AJ Kears and Ishmael Jones, how they've matured over the past couple of years, and they can sit there and show these younger guys, hey, listen, you keep pushing. There's a pot of gold at the end of this tunnel.
And Scott, I vividly remember, and I know Coach Rogers watches our program each week, even if he has to watch it on playback. I remember you coming in our first show of the year, his first year, and you said, Tim, I went out to his practice this week. This guy's going to be successful. He's extremely disciplined, but he's likable. These kids are going to run through a brick wall for him, and spot on. That's what they've done.
Rarely am I right, so I'll take a victory anywhere I can get it. But I mean, you just got to go to one practice. That's all you got to do is one practice, and that, you've got to. So many people forget what he inherited the year before.
Right.
I mean, it was a dumpster fire.
I know.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and look at us now. So.
Yeah. Defensively, the Panthers have stars at every level of the defense. Joshua Coleman is the guy that comes to mind for me up front, although all those guys have done really well. But Coleman, the senior, he's a big guy. He's strong. He's fast. And, man, you got to pay attention to him if you're the team going up against the Panthers.
Right. And, I'm like I said, this weather bodes well. The linebackers ought to be just licking their chops on this.
Well, you led right into it. The strength of this team, and we mention this almost every week, but you can't help but do it. The three linebackers, Donovan Minner, AJ Kears, and Kendall Thomas, they're all unbelievable. And when they're all three on the field together, there's not a gap that's not being filled. The quarterback's getting pressure all the time. They can cover the pass. This linebacking core is incredible.
It is, and I'm looking forward to watching them tomorrow night. Because they're facing a team who's not necessarily known for being a great running team, but they may be forced to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of times on the backside of that defense, the defensive backs, they'll play two corners and two safeties, so they'll play a 4 deep sometimes. The guy that comes to mind for me, I've watched Sumter County now for 3 straight weeks, and Alex Brown in the defensive backfield, really a good cover corner. If they've got him at safety, man, nothing gets behind him. These guys have got it at all levels.
I'm looking forward to seeing some coverage sacks tomorrow night too.
Yeah.
Because these receivers for Hapeville Charter, they're not going to be able to run their sharp routes and do their cuts, and a lot of times, especially if the field is soupy like we hope it is, really and truly, that benefits Sumter County in that scenario. But I think that with the taking a little bit longer for the routes to develop, the DBs being able to keep stuff in front of them, we may see some high sack numbers tomorrow night.
What's so impressive to me, Scott, about the Sumter County defense, you go watch high school football, and you and I watch a lot of high school football, and you get guys that are either really big, and maybe they're big and strong, but they're not very quick, they're not very fast. Sumter County at every level is big, they're strong, and they're fast.
And that one element that you just can't sit there, and it's hard to measure. And one thing, I'm a coach Prime. He's looking for dogs.
Yeah,
these guys are dogs.
Yeah,
they are. They're hungry. I think that you said they're headhunters and stuff like that. And it's funny because I texted a coach I knew a while back. He's in the college coaches now, and I said, hey, listen, you might want to NFHS if you ain't doing anything tomorrow night. Watch this game and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's going on. All right, let's compare this, Scott. We said that Hapeville Charter is averaging 25 points per game on offense. If you compare that to Sumter County's averaging 43 points per game on offense. On defense, Hapeville Charter is giving up on average 14 points a game, which is incredible, but Sumter County's only giving up 8 points per game. If you look at the Georgia High School Football Daily's Maxwell rating systems, they have the Panthers as a 13-point favorite.
I wondered last week's game, if it was a close game, a closer scoring game, I wonder what that would. I bet it wouldn't show 13 points.
I bet you're right. Yeah. All right. Tonight's show is also brought to you in part by Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance. They are located at 925 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Americus. Go by and see Marty, Mary Lynn, or any of their staff and let them discuss your insurance needs with you. They can even do the famous discount double check to make sure you are receiving all of the savings that are available to you. Give them a call at 928-3686, or you can look them up on Facebook. Thanks again to Marty McDonald State Farm. And remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Before we get to our predictions, Scott, I want to look at the other area games of Southwest Georgia teams. Early County in Class A Division II, they've got a tough one this week as they will take on Lincoln County.
Lincoln County is back and back strong. I'm really, to be honest with you, surprised Early County beat Screven County, but they did. So I'm going to have to go with Lincoln County on this one.
Yeah, I think Lincoln right now is the favorite to face Bowden in the finals, and so I too am going to go with Lincoln County. But Early County always really strong in that classification.
They always have been. They have been. But Lincoln County, I watched some of their highlights, and they're playing on another level right now. I mean, if you got to figure, we saw Sly County played them a few years ago, and a lot of these they were a young team then. That's exactly what the guys on the radio said then. I asked them, I said, "Tell me about Lincoln County." Said, we're young. Well, those guys are older now.
That's right. So that's AD2 in Class A Division I. Our friends from right down the road in Worth County will take on Pepperell. Pepperell.
There you go, Pepperell.
The Northern Georgia guys got to correct.
Yeah, I got Pepperell. It's Pepperell. Yeah, it kind of rolls off there. I had a bunch of fraternity brothers that live from there. So, Pepperell usually always, has a good team. They're always hanging around, but Worth County is just too strong right now.
Worth County, I think, is the number one ranked team in Class A Division I. So definitely going to go with Worth County and our South Georgia friends from Sylvester. Of course, in AA, we know about Sumter County, and they'll take on Hapeville Charter. On the other side of that, Scott, region opponent Carver of Columbus, and they're going to take on Burke County, who came back late in the fourth quarter and upset Rockmart last week.
I sure did. That was something to see. I sent the what was it, the last 26 seconds of that game, and I think I sent it to you. I know I sent it to Carson to watch and all, but Burke County, I mean, that just tells you they were real evenly matched because they played in Rockmart, and they went up there and, like you said, they upset them. They beat them up there. I like to think that hopefully Burke County will catch Carver Columbus looking towards next week. But we know Carver Columbus. We saw it firsthand how disciplined and how well coached they are. So I'm going to have to go with Carver Columbus, even though my heart wants to go with Burke, but my head says you better go with Carver.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Carver Columbus, the defending state champions, and until someone knocks them off, they are the king of the hill. That'll take us. There's no 3A teams from Southwest Georgia, no 4A teams from Southwest Georgia. We get to Class 5A, and Scott and I are going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Class 5A in just a moment. But, Scott, one of those matchups that's now been pushed back. It's not going to be played this Friday. Thomas County Central and Roswell.
Roswell was our rival in my high school, and they always are a good team. They always come in. Smart team. Actually, Carson's got a teammate that played at Roswell High School. He went to Furman and then ended up transferring out to Colorado and done really well as a DB. Last name is Yates, and we sit with their parents a lot of time. But Thomas County Central is just too strong. I mean, they're the one that's picked to win it, and Roswell, I don't think has any idea what they're about to walk into.
So that'll get us to 6A. Valdosta, and Scott, I'm ashamed to say this, but I did not know Valdosta had had the kind of year they've had.
Mm-hmm.
Valdosta will host Buford. That'll be a big one.
Valdosta has turned around a lot of things. They got a great superintendent down there who's a personal friend of mine who was grew up in Taylor County and just a fine gentleman. I attribute a lot of the turnaround to him and of course the others, but this is going to make at least one of our listeners ill with me, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but I'm going to pick Valdosta. I think Valdosta. They're playing in Valdosta, if I remember correctly. We'll see how Buford does away from home after they've ridden down 75. Because I can tell you right now, when I go up and down 75, I ain't worth killing.
Yeah,
So let's just see if that has any impact on them.
This is the only one I'm going to disagree with Scott on. I think it's going to be a repeat of the 6A state championship from last year. I'm going to go with Buford winning this. I know our friend Kerry Claiborne will be glad to hear that. He's the PA announcer for Buford. Buford's just strong every year, and so we're going to say Buford. I'm going to say Buford's going to win this. I also think they'll match up against my good friend John Lang's Carrollton Trojans, and it'll be a repeat of last year's state championship.
Tim, why do you think Buford's good every year? I want you to share that with our.
Well, they are the #1 ranked academic school in the state.
That doesn't typically equate to good football, though.
They are the #1 ranked athletic when you look at all athletic teams.
Why do you think that is, though?
State.
I'm just curious. I'd like to hear your theory on that.
They are a city school system, and there are ways to have athletes in the city school system.
Do tell.
That sometimes we don't get the privilege of that here in the South Georgia area.
I don't have an opinion. I was just asking for yours.
That's right. Let me thank Jessica Stick and her husband, Lance Stick, the owners of Custom Performance in Americas. They now have custom auto sales. They're located at 907 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Americas. They have been fixing your ride for 25 years. Now they want to help you buy one. They have added major banks and better financing so that somebody in any credit situation can be helped. You can reach Custom Auto Sales at 924-5558, or you can check them out online at customperformanceauto.com. Thanks again to Custom Auto Sales for sponsoring this segment of the Integrity Sports Podcast. Now, let's talk a little Gainesville High School Class 5A football. Most everybody knows about the brawl, the Georgia high school suspension. Here, I'm going to go step by step, Scott.
Okay.
Gainesville originally had 39 players suspended after a second-round brawl with Brunswick High School. Gainesville then appealed that decision, and during the appeal process, 4 Gainesville players were reinstated. So at that point, there were 35 Gainesville players supposed to be suspended. When that was the outcome, Gainesville got a Hall County judge to file an injunction against Georgia High School Association.
Gainesville will want you to know that that judge is actually from Dawson County, but it was in the same circuit as Hall County.
Gotcha. So at that point, the Georgia High School Association suspended the game that was originally scheduled for last week between Langston Hughes and Gainesville. This week, the two sides met, and Scott, they came up with a compromise. Gainesville showed where several, I don't remember what the number was, but let's say 8 to 10 of their players on the film came off the bench, or if they were on the field, they were involved in what could be considered fighting. Okay, and Gainesville has, what I've heard, no problem with those guys being suspended. But the kids that came off the bench or were on the field and didn't do anything that was considered fighting, Georgia High School has agreed to allow them now to play. A lot of this is based on historical knowledge. So earlier in the season, there was a bench brawl between 2 teams in the middle Georgia area. Both teams left the bench. None or very few of them were suspended. So GHSA basically set precedent there that they did not follow in the Gainesville situation. All this sound pretty clear?
That's my understanding. I'll let you finish everything then.
All right. So GHSA has agreed to this compromise, and a new playoff schedule for 5A had to be created so that eventually the two teams that would play for the state championship could play in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, and that both teams would have equal rest for the semifinals. So the Roswell-Thomas County Central game, originally scheduled for this Friday, will be pushed back and be played on the same date that the winner of the Gainesville-Langston-Hughes game would be played. This way, all of those teams in the semifinals in Class 5A will have equal rest. Because of that schedule, it also changes the 6A state championship game, which was originally scheduled to be played on Wednesday, December the 17th. Those two Class 6A teams will now play on Tuesday, December the 16th, and the Class 5A will flip with them, and they'll play on Wednesday, December 17th. That way, whoever wins the two semifinal games in Class 5A would both have 6 days of rest.
Okay.
So, Scott, it's a mess that had a lot of tentacles, but I think both sides probably made some mistakes in the process. Glad they have a workable plan to determine a state championship that seems to be fair to all parties.
I think, and I think I can speak freely because I don't rely on Gainesville nor GHSA or any of that for my livelihood, but there were a lot of egos involved on both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I can understand, because believe it, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but I'm kind of a rule follower. I like to be a rule follower. And I'm going to say this as a former high school football official in Alabama, not Georgia, but I was in Alabama. And I like to see rules, and I like to see consistency and objectivity in these situations. But what I have seen in the past is we try to hold on one second. Okay. I'm gonna spank your hand if you touch that one more time. Anyway, we're seeing the problem with these quote unquote zero tolerance things. You know, when you sit there and say, if you do this, then this, and we don't care anything else about that. We don't live in a black and white world.
Right.
We live in a gray world. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, there's some things I realize are black and white, but we ain't talking about spiritual matters right now. We're talking about high school football, and but when you sit there and you say, if this happens, we're doing this and nothing else. Well, it's like a lot of things. You got to look at the context. And I think in this Gainesville situation, at first, I was glad to see what GHSA did, because I think, in my personal opinion, they were harder on Brunswick than they were on Gainesville.
Mm-hmm.
But Gainesville immediately was going to suffer consequences. Brunswick was not going to suffer consequences, and a lot of the kids who probably were involved in the worst part of it at Brunswick may not ever see any consequences. Right. They may be football players only, and you can suspend them. They ain't going to play any other sports, or if they're going to graduate this year, there's no consequences. So Gainesville. So in the gray world we live in, you would hope cooler heads would prevail. Well, the GHSA has seen its wings clipped on a couple of times. What exactly what you said. They've handed down some punishment. Local officials get together, file an injunction, file a local judge who, and I'm going to say Gainesville made some excellent points to that judge. No, they did.
They did.
But we live in a world where I'm going to side eye anybody who's required who is living off local voters to make their living.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that judge was put in a precarious position, and I'm not saying one way or the other where I agree with it or not, but I understand he's got some outside pressures, and whether they want to admit it or not, you have to realize that, and you have to acknowledge that. So I think GHSA said, okay, we are tired of getting our wing clipped. Everybody in the nation knows about this. We're drawing a line in the sand. We're going to appeal this.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And I understand why they did that. I understand because even though that judge could be pure as the driven snow and made his decision completely objectively, because once again, I say Gainesville made some excellent points to him. He just looks bad because it was like a local judge in the local circuit there. And so when GHSA said, okay, we're going to appeal it, they kind of drug their feet on a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And that goes back to egos on both sides. Yeah. But I think that there were some people that were involved that we will never know who they were or what happened, but they came in probably from the outside and said, listen, boys, let's get together on this. Let's find something we can all live with. And that's kind of what happened. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And there's some folks behind the scenes that I am aware of that gave some advice in this case, and I think it was solid advice. I think it's biblical advice. The Bible tells us to get good counsel, and I think some of the folks at the Georgia High School Association did that. And again, let's wrap this up by just saying that cooler heads prevailed, and it looks like a solution that will be fair to all parties involved was reached. So,
And I think we need to acknowledge sometimes maybe some of these zero tolerance things, aren't necessarily the easy. I mean, the right way out. It may appear to be the easy way, but this has created a big bag of snakes.
that's right. All right, Scott, before we get off, we haven't predicted the Sumter County game with Hapeville Charter tomorrow. I'm going to let you go first and give your thoughts.
I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there early, and I'm going to watch Sumter County win that game.
And I'm going to join you. And I'm also going to say Sumter County comes out, and for the first time in Sumter County high school history, the Panthers will make it to the state championship. Don't know who that opponent will be, but we're pretty confident Sumter County, if they continue to play like they have been playing, will make it to the state championship. And these two guys right here, along with the thousands of people that are watching us that are in our area, are going to either be there or listening. By the way, if you can't make it to the game tomorrow night, make sure and tune in. Donnie McCrary and Doug Gooden will have it on our local radio, and you can get the app, 94.7 WDEC, and the voice of the Panthers, Donnie McCrary, will be on that call. So, Scott, looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We want to thank you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. Make sure to go to our YouTube page. I told a bunch of folks this at a meeting today. We're desperately trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. You don't ever have to watch on YouTube again, but log on to YouTube, look up Integrity Sports Podcast. When you get to our page, just click that red subscribe button. You won't get loaded up with notifications. It's not going to cost you a dime, but it'll help us greatly if we can reach that 1,000 subscriber mark. We were 4 people away from 3,000 viewers this week. So thank you. We've had a lot of views. Whatever platform you're on, hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thanks again to our friends at Harper's Tree and Stump Removal, Carter's Fried Chicken, Custom Performance and Custom Auto Sales, as well as Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance. Everybody is supporting the Panthers. Go Sumter County. Thank you for watching. We hope you'll tune in again next week as we'll have our football wrap-up show. Hopefully, the Panthers will be in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. For my friend, Scott Westbrook, I'm Tim Estes. Thank you for watching. So long, everybody.